Welcome to the 12-Minute Leadership Podcast, where in 12 minutes or less, I'll share small things that you can put into immediate practice that will make a big difference in your leadership effectiveness. I'm your host, Elise Boggs-Morales, leadership professor, consultant, and coach. For the last 17 years, I have helped thousands of leaders level up their influence and achieve remarkable results. If you want to trade compliance for true commitment and create your dream team, you are in the right place. Get ready for a quick hit of practical wisdom to increase your team's engagement, inspire top performance, and retain your best talent. Ready to level up your influence and get better results? 12 minutes starts now. Hi, everyone. Elise here. Welcome back to the podcast. As many of you know, this podcast has traditionally been a quick dose of leadership insight in 12 minutes or less. And that's not changing, but I also wanted to introduce something new. From time to time, I'll be inviting practitioners, leaders, and experts to join me for longer form conversations so that we can go deeper into topics that have the power to transform the way that we lead, think, and grow. These interview episodes will give you the opportunity to hear directly from people whose wisdom, experience, and perspectives have shaped not only their success, but also the success of countless others. And I can't think of a better guest to kick off this new format than today's guest, Rosanne Austin. Rosanne is a best-selling author, creator of the Fearlessly Fertile Method, and a former California state prosecutor turned fertility mindset mentor. Through her work, she has helped thousands of women around the world achieve their dream of becoming a mother, often in circumstances that seemed impossible. Many of you have heard me talk about Rosanne before. During one of the most challenging seasons of my life, I hired Rosanne as my coach. What began as support for my fertility journey evolved into 2 years of coaching that impacted nearly every area of my life. During that time, I became a mother, and now I'm pregnant with baby number 2. I launched this podcast and published my first book. In fact, one of the most popular episodes of this podcast was episode 17, where I share 3 mindset shifts that I learned from Rosanne. That response to the episode showed me that these lessons resonate beyond fertility. While Rosanne is best known for her work in fertility, what has always impressed me most about her is that her work goes beyond it. At its core, her work is about mindset, helping people identify the beliefs, the stories, and the underlying patterns that either support their success or quietly undermine it. That's why I wanted to have her on the podcast today, because whether you're leading a team, building a business, pursuing a dream, or navigating a difficult season of your life, mindset truly matters. And so today we're going to explore the role that mindset plays in leadership, resilience, growth, and achieving the things that matter most. So with that long introduction, Rosanne, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Elise. What an honor, and just an amazing way that things come full circle to be a guest on your podcast. So I'm delighted and honored to be here.
Thank you. So let's get started with just a foundation around mindset. So people hear the word mindset all the time. How do you define mindset, and why does it have such a profound impact on our results?
Well, first of all, a lot of times when people hear mindset, they think woo-woo, they think positive thinking, and I don't think it's any of those things, really. I think when we look at mindset, what we're looking at, what you think, what you believe, how you take action, it's an ethos. It's a way of being. And mindset can be used for good, and it can be a little bit less constructive, depending on how you want to look at it. But when we start from a foundational level, thinking about mindset as what you think, what you believe, how you take action, and your overall ethos, you can begin to see why it is so influential, impactful, and frankly, it's a way of determining whether or not somebody is truly going to achieve the goal that they set out to achieve. Because if you have a mindset of openness, if you're looking at possibility instead of limitation, if you're thinking constructively as opposed to what you can't do, if you have an openness to your mindset, you're going to move through the world in a very different way than somebody who is focused on limitations, what's not possible, all of the pitfalls, and anything negative. You're in many ways focused on the past instead of the future that you want to build. Now, really quickly, I'm not saying that it's a Pollyanna way of looking at the world. It's simply cause and effect. If you're focused on the future, focused on possibility, that causes you to take different action and therefore create different results. If your focus is on the past and the limitation and what can't be done, well, you're going to probably stay the same and continue to create the results that you have created in the past, good or bad. So it's just a way of being, I think, is one of the simplest and most clear and easy to understand ways of explaining it. And simple cause and effect. I believe that what you think is going to influence the action you take, and the action you take is going to influence the result. I mean, it's pretty logical, pretty linear, and undeniable.
So for leaders, I know that this has even greater impact because the way that a leader interprets challenges, the future, strategy, etc., the story that they tell is then going to impact the story that those that follow them are going to believe. So, can you speak a little bit to how important it is for leaders to frame things and communicate things in such a way that has a positive impact on others?
Yes, I mean, I think as a leader, you're constantly being watched by the people that you lead, and I don't mean in a negative way. Sometimes it's micro expressions, or sometimes it's the choices or the pattern of choices. So as a leader, it's really important to get honest about what your current mindset is. What do I think? How do I think? What do I actually believe? What do I value? How does that influence my behavior? And if we can be really honest about that, that begins to paint a picture of the truth of the way that we're really operating when we're leading teams. An old mentor of mine said that you can always look at somebody's current results to be the honest indicator of really what their mindset is and what they actually believe. Now, that can be a little harsh because if a leader is in circumstances they don't particularly like, that can sound a lot like blame. But really, it's a positive opportunity, a really rich opportunity to simply say, how can I be better? And I think the greatest leaders are the ones that are paying close attention to their own behavior because that's going to impact, it's going to have a trickle down effect to the team. And if somebody is self aware, somebody is asking questions, they foster an environment with their team of really interesting collaboration. And when the team is aware, that their leader is aware, then everyone can have open communication. It's less about I'm the leader, I know everything. But it fosters an environment where everyone is encouraged to explore. The goal is shared and shared in a way that is less tyrannical. Because as leaders, at least, one of the things we're doing is enrolling our team constantly through our behaviors, how we move through the organization. And that, when you foster an environment that encourages people to ask questions, to be self reflective in a non judgmental environment, and everyone is focused on the goal, I think you can create wildly different results. And it encourages more conversation. And when there's more conversation, there's less likely to be circumstances for confusion and just unproductive interactions with the team.
Hmm. I love that. So before we circle back to leadership again, I want to talk about the work you've done with women. So you've coached thousands of women facing circumstances that often seemed impossible. I know some of the women that you've worked with had less than a 1% chance of getting pregnant. In general, what patterns do you consistently see in the people who ultimately succeed?
Well, and it's interesting because of the crossover with leadership, because I've coached a lot of women in the C suite, a lot of women in Fortune 500 companies, women's sports, real women that are at elite levels of personal performance, productivity, and in leadership roles. And one of the things that I think is consistent, now there's a whole litany of things, but one of the things that I think is undeniable is that woman's ability to make a decision. Now, I know you're like, "What?" We're making thousands of decisions every day, if not hundreds or, whatever. But when I think of decision, it really is a conscious awareness of the direction that they are headed. And I like to look at the Latin root of decision, deci, to cut, to be able to make a decision and they're not going to back off of that decision. And if decisions are changed, they are changed quickly, right? With new information and they pivot. But what that really translates to, Elise, is a trust in themselves. It is a trust in what's in their heart, trust in what they know, trust that if they make a mess, they will clean it up. And that gives a woman or any leader their ability to make a decision is a signal to the team. It's a signal whether they're trying to have a baby with their fertility team. It is a signal. I know what I want, and I'm willing to do what it takes to get there. And that kind of clarity and that internal certainty, I think gives us courage that we need as women, either on the fertility journey or as leaders in our organization. And people think decisions, oh, it's vanilla or chocolate. No, getting to the point where you can make a real decision and you're not wavering, you're not second guessing, but you're willing to have the courage to lead in that direction and pay the price for whatever the result is. I think that it gives leaders and it gives women on this journey a sense of confidence that you cannot get any other way.
Well, I know you often told women to decide, I'm not leaving without my baby. So that's kind of that decision. And I would imagine in a leadership world, it's similar to burn the ships. You make a decision, you burn the ships, and you just decide that that's what's going to happen. And the resources seem to come, the connections seem to come. I've seen that over and over again in my work with you. So I love what you shared about that. Another question, many leaders are incredibly successful on paper, but still feel stuck in certain areas of their life. Why does success in one area not automatically translate to success everywhere?
Ooh, I love that question. Well, I think that so many of us were given from the time we were little a set of unconscious programs about what success is. And generally speaking, where I see success diverge in, individuals and leaders or whatever, is if they're coloring within the lines, that's success. I coach so many physicians, lawyers, teachers, nurses, entrepreneurs, founders. I mean, you name it. And when it comes to their work, they're on it. They are absolutely at the apex of their personal game when it comes to that. But that's largely because the belief system behind that was being great at work is success. Just slay it there and everything else will fall into place. But very few of us were given the kind of tools that it takes to complete that circle because it isn't just work. It's home, it's family, it's our relationships, it's our relationship to faith, it's how we move in our own community. Like there's so much more. And it's like we're trying to use the key to our house for the key to our car.
Mm.
And we're not always equipped with the kind of tools that it takes to flesh out those other relationships. I mean, look, when I was a prosecutor, I was like, oh, when I got the plum assignment, when I was the lead trial attorney in the sexual assault unit that I was assigned to, I was like, oh, I made it. I made it. This is great. I'm getting all the things that I wanted. But then I kind of looked around at my life and there was so much else that I wanted and I thought I would get fulfillment in one place, and not the case. So this is how you can have somebody who on paper looks amazing and they've checked all the boxes, they have all the degrees, everything is lined up. But the thing that really feeds them, the thing that gives them the resilience that they need as a leader, as a human being, is not it's not fleshed out. to the same degree. So this is where, we'll kind of hit this place in our careers and then we're like, is this all there is?
Hmm.
And if you're not working actively on rounding those other things out, well, it might be all there is.
Right. And I imagine that there's a different approach for those different situations. Maybe the way that we approach leadership in business is different than we approach our spouse at home.
Are you kidding me? Like when I was a prosecutor and my husband is a retired police officer now, I mean, I had to learn to take off that prosecutor hat because I was certainly not going to talk to him that way. He was not submitting to a cross examination. So it is that it's cultivating a level of self-awareness that's deeply connected to the world's most annoying question, and that is, what do I really want? And that question, Elise, is extremely disarming, I think, because as leaders, as women, as men, moving through our lives who commit to excellence, it's a dangerous question at times because it'll sometimes unearth things that we didn't want to look at. But there's never been a better time than now to ask that question. What do I really want? And when I ask that question, it's not just, what do I want to eat for breakfast? It's like, how do I want to be? How do I want to move through the world? What's the impact that I want to have in my organization? Or how do I want to be with my family? And I think there's a through line here of having the courage to be self aware.
I love that. Thank you for that. So, you've often challenged people to examine the stories they're telling themselves. What are some of the most common stories successful people tell themselves that quietly limit their potential?
Well, I think that there's several. The first is, I'm not lovable unless I'm successful. And that is, most people don't even want to look at that question at first, or they think about that question in terms of, well, of course I'm lovable. I'm a good person. I'm this, I'm that. But as a recovering type A control freaky professional who was constantly chasing accolades, degrees, certifications, everything, one of the most humbling experiences that my own fertility journey gave me is I realized that what was driving my hunger for success is I didn't feel worthy. I
Hmm.
didn't feel lovable. And people can say, oh, I don't feel worthy. And that feels safer. But I think the crux of it is I'm not lovable. And I had to do the work to realize that, man, I didn't think I was lovable unless I had that string of degrees or unless I had that number of cases won and victims served or books written or, different things. And so having the willingness to examine that and say, wow, my feeling of unworthiness or unlovability is really driving me to overwork, underreceive, overgive, put myself last. I'm really paying a price. And I see that consistently because the women that I coach are high performers. And I see this across the board. It's this underlying belief that I'm not lovable. Another one that's closely related is I'm going to be abandoned. And if I'm not serving XYZ purpose, then I'm not enough and people are going to leave me. That's actually, Elise, one of the other reasons that there's this seeming paradox of women, especially because I coach primarily women, is I c- I can be successful, but I can't get too successful because I might begin to outshine, so and so. I might overshadow so and so. Or I can't want too much because if I have too much, then people will see me and it's unsafe to have what I have. Right. So, like, just to give you a quick example, when I was a prosecutor, there was a belief running around that yes, I can have a great career, I can have love, I can have a sexy sports car, I can have great clothes. But if I add a baby to that, that's greedy. Who gets to have all of that? So we see high performing men and women kind of hit an internal set point, and then they will begin to self sabotage. Now, with high performers that I know that you work with and that I work with, the idea of self-sabotage seems absolutely nuts. But when you hit that internal set point that I can't have that or that's too much for me, that's for other people, then you'll see a pattern of self-sabotage. So I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I'm greedy to want all of this, to have a great business, great career, and be happy. Who does that, right? And in a culture where it's almost like the complaint Olympics, where or exhaustion Olympics, it's a badge of honor. I think that's changing, but it's very often a badge of honor to talk about how exhausted you are, or how many projects you have, and how miserable your life is. That I think a lot of people get the accolades that they dearly desire, but in ways that are deleterious to their happiness.
Mhm.
And we think we have to trade.
Mm.
And I think that's another belief that can get in the way, that in order for me to get what I want, it has to come at an extreme price. And I think that that's a horrific lie, especially that women have been told. And, and I think another belief, just to give the audience a sense of how deep this can go, is we often have stories running around our heads about what it means to be responsible, but we never question whose framework are we using for determining what's responsible. People will choose the hard thing. They will choose to take less for themselves. They'll do all kinds of things because they think it's responsible. But I have seen far too many lives destroyed or stunted by quote unquote responsibility when what they really wanted was something very different. And once somebody gets out of what is, what somebody else calls responsible and begins to see that following their heart, following their calling, doing what they've been longing to do is actually the responsible thing, things really start to change. Now, that doesn't mean that they necessarily leave their work or they blow up their business or anything like that. It really goes back to a mindset, how they approach challenges on a daily basis, how they approach their business, how they approach their interactions with their team. And that's really the power of mindset.
Mm. Something I love that you highlighted is this overfunctioning that leaders can often do because so much of their worth and identity is tied to performance. And you wonder, what is the long term impact on leaders behind them, thinking that that's the modeling for becoming a leader. And I've heard lots of younger leaders say, if that's what leadership is, I don't know if I want that because there's no quality of life outside of it. And I think things are shifting to a certain extent where people want to have a meaningful life and a meaningful calling within leadership. And so I like that you're highlighting, I think, kind of what we were raised with, which is a lot of the overwork and over responsibility. But there is, I think, a shift happening. And I hope it goes in a direction where leadership becomes tied to an identity that isn't about necessarily performance and becomes more sustainable. So I love what you shared about that.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, Elise. I mean, I love that you also tapped into this performative nature of what we do, but that actually points to another problem of a lack of authenticity. And I know authenticity is something, there's bumper stickers about it. There's, we hear about that on Instagram, but I think that we all come to this life with very unique and wonderful gifts. And we're never able to fully explore those things if all we're doing is performing. We never fully get to know ourselves until we're willing to do that exploration. And, in the context of leadership, and, I've studied leaders, I've, been really influenced by a lot of the great ones out there. And I think the very best ones are the ones willing to ask questions and willing to stay open and willing to be receptive in the way that they get to the goal. Now, they'll be like a dog with a bone when it comes to the goal for sure. But there is an internal confidence and willingness to explore that I think makes them adaptable, makes them approachable, and really gives them ways of innovatively getting to the goal.
What I love is that you're highlighting the importance, I think, of self awareness, of reflection, of leading intentionally versus just on autopilot. And so, yeah, reevaluating those ways of thinking that maybe have become so second nature that we don't even realize we've bought into them. So, for somebody that maybe doesn't even know that they hold those beliefs that are limiting them, how can you gain subjective awareness of yourself or objective awareness of yourself, which I should say?
So it goes back to something that I said a little earlier that I'm really happy that I have an opportunity to kind of circle back to is this idea of your current results being an indicator of where your mindset is. Because if you look around your life and you always do this with honesty and love, it's never intended to be an indictment. But if somebody sat down 20 minutes and mapped out their life. Where am I with my career? Where am I with my health? Where am I with my physical fitness? Where am I with my closest relationships, friends, family, community? Where am I with my connection to my sense of spirituality? Where am I in my life? And I think if we're willing to take an honest assessment of those things from a loving perspective, from the perspective things, unless we are dead, things can get better. But take an honest assessment and say, is this current state what I actually want? Or is this the reflection of somebody else's idea of what I should want? And I'll give you an example. This is going to seem really silly, but it's kind of not. So I remember I kind of had in my mind a set of goals. Like, I'd really know if I made it, if I had this in place or that in place, or I accomplished this thing. And one of the things that I want, guilty indulgence, Elise, is I wanted an Hermes Birkin. I wanted an orange Hermes Birkin. It was in my mind. I was going to get it.
For the
And
men on this podcast, can you define what that is?
yeah, well, I mean, just get on Instagram and type in Hermes Birkin. It's like this. It is an obscenely expensive handbag. Obscene. But it was like this thing that like you had arrived. And I realized I'm like, oh, I want that. It's on my vision board. These are the things that I want. And when I finally got it, I opened up the box and I remember thinking, this is all there is? It's smaller than I thought. It's actually not that impressive. It's probably, I don't know, maybe $500 worth of really nice leather, and that's it, right? It was, I had fallen for the trap that the feeling of success would be in an item. Now, it's a beautiful thing, okay? I'm not hating on the Birkin, but what I am encouraging people to consider that are listening to this is I allowed my brain to get kidnapped by this idea that, oh, you should want this thing. And, everyone who's anyone carries this bag. And while it's beautiful, it didn't make me feel any more successful. It was, and it was kind of funny. I laughed. It was an expensive laugh, but I was thinking to myself, okay, all right, I get it. I get it. I want to start defining for myself what success is. Yes, I'm not poo-pooing having beautiful things. Have beautiful things. But know what really lights you up and lights you up in a way that makes what you do on a daily basis freaking worth it. Because you are trading your life every single day for that thing. And one of the things that I did, Elise, like when I had that experience, I still have it. I still carry it. You'll see it on Instagram. But what I realized is I didn't want that. Success for me was no longer going to be defined by what society tells me I should want or what Vogue tells me, or TikTok or whatever tells me what I should want. For me, the success that I really wanted and want and I'm committed to is freedom. We travel the world now, whenever and wherever we want. And my ability now to serve my clients, to serve my family as wife and mother, and all of the ways that I show up in the world, to do that freely and to do it when I want to, how I want to, for me. And at the end of the day, knowing that I serve my clients at the highest level, to me, that's success. It is very different. I drive an old Mercedes, a 1984 380 SL, okay? There's no technology in it. I had my husband remove anything that, Bluetooth, anything. I wanted the old, like, there is freedom in peace. There is freedom in silence. There's so many more indicators of success. So I would encourage anyone listening to this to really consider if the measures of success that they are currently using in their work and other aspects of their life really line up. And that's also going to cause them to ask if they are being the kind of leader that they want to be. And I think that starting to ask dangerous questions can have wonderfully brilliant results.
And kind of circling back to what I was saying earlier about a lot of younger leaders not wanting to emulate the leaders ahead of them, I think leaders who do what you're saying are also giving those people permission to do it for themselves, to define what success is for them, because the leader is going first, the leader's pointing the way, and can help that be more sustainable. And I love that you're sharing from your own life about mindset shifts that you've made, that you're really living this. And I think of two examples that I've observed in your life as an outsider that speak to this concept. One is that when I first met you in person at your home in Texas, you had a big grand home. And then you decided that that actually didn't suit you, and you downsized to something that felt more cozy and made you feel more at home. You didn't need the grandeur to feel successful. And then the other is I remember asking you what you did when you made your first million. And do you remember what you told me?
I went and ate a ham sandwich.
There was no marching band?
No, I was expecting that there would be a marching band coming through my front door. And I was like, no, like none of that happened. I just went back to work. I watched it cross the, seven figures, and I'm like, what? I thought that angels would come from on high and everyone would be thanking me and all. And I thank you for bringing that up because it makes me laugh. And I love that. That makes my heart so happy to be able to go back and think about that and to share that with the people listening. Because, yeah, I mean, I thought having a 10,000 square foot home was going to be success. What nobody tells you is you have gardeners coming multiple times a week. We had cleaning women coming every week. There was noise constantly. The upkeep in Texas I was paying $2,000 a month in my water bill. Like I flipped out. And, so there was this. And one of the things that I really encourage people to keep in mind is if you want that, go for it. Experience it. Have the courage also to, when you get there, decide if it's what you really want. What that experience gave me is I was like, nope, my peace and my quiet and that sense of coziness, because you're absolutely right. Like my husband and I were sleeping on one wing of the house and I couldn't even hear my son who was clear on the other side of the 10,000 square feet. And I didn't like the people in our development. It was just, it didn't line up with anything I valued. And and I just made the decision. I needed something cozy. I needed something that felt like home. I needed something that felt like a sanctuary rather than an albatross around my neck and the burden of having strangers coming in and out of my house all the time to manage it while I did my work. So it was quite a lesson. And I'm so grateful for having that contrast because it's a really powerful way of learning what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah, well, I love that you're such an example of somebody who is incredibly successful, but also very grounded. And so I'm going to ask you one more question, just kind of before we close things up. I could ask you 100 questions and I could listen to this all day because I love this topic, but this might be interesting to the listeners to hear if you remember. So as someone who has coached me personally, what mindset shifts did you see me make that changed the trajectory of my life?
Ooh, what a delicious question. I love that. Well, one of the things I think when I think about our relationship and and all of the beautiful things that you've built since we've known each other. You were already on a success track. But I think what our work did was really pull out that next level in you and pave a way for you to be even more courageous, okay? So even more, all right? I mean, when I think about the women that I coach, especially you, I'm already working with amazingness, okay? Just like Venus or Serena, natural talent and real commitment and the drive to do the work. As a coach, that is amazing. That is what you pray for in your clients, and actually that's all I tolerate in my clients. But one of the greatest shifts that I think you made was in receiving, because you are so committed to doing so much good that one of the things that you often forgot about was you and taking care of you, and watching this really open up in you and see that as a female leader, you can give at the highest level and you must receive at the highest level is not just good for you, it's good for the people that you're serving. So that every time you meet with them, your energy is high. You're focused on their vision. You're able to hold space for the different challenges they have because your cup is full. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of women are well intentioned. Trust me, been there, done that. But when you are performing at such a higher level, you've got to be open to receiving in the equal and opposite direction. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see that flourish in you. And it doesn't surprise me that at that time when you were really saying big yeses to yourself consistently, that you got your heart's desire and
Mm.
that you will continue to flex that muscle. Because I think as women, and well, and men as well, like one of the things as leaders, we have to remember we never know who's watching, which is why anytime you make an investment in your own mentorship, your education, and hire Elise to do what she does best in the world and bring her gifts to you, what that does is shorten the gap between where you are and where you want to be, because you're hiring somebody that has done the work. One of the things I always, people ask me all the time how to hire a coach. I said, if your coach does not have a coach and they are not spending at least 10 times what, you're asking them to, like, find somebody else, because you want to find somebody that has done the work, is doing the work, is 20 steps ahead, and can help you avoid the pitfalls. And I think that there is something to be said for somebody who knows the road because they hoed it.
Mm.
And I think that watching you get into a place of receptivity gives you a depth that you can use with your clients because you've walked it in a way that unless somebody's done the work, they would have no way of even finding that. So it makes me so happy because, like, conceiving is all about receiving. You hear me say that all the time. And if you can conceive and you're allowing yourself this good, to come through you, I think it makes everything else you do so much richer. So seeing that in you is one of my greatest loves in my professional work. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to answer that question, because I think it's a rare thing.
Yes, and just a testament to that, and I mention this to leaders I work with all the time, is they have noticed in me, they said, "You seem more calm, more measured, more grounded with a baby than before you had a baby." And even being pregnant now, 7 months, which the audience can't see at the moment, but even going into a new season of expansion, because I have created that muscle of receive and I've created margin. I've resourced myself with support and help. All of those types of things. It's really strange to think how overwhelmed I was before kids, and then to be less overwhelmed with a toddler, with one on the way, with a business, and with a, full plate of client work. And it's a testament to exactly what you just said. And I think that that is a tangible result that points back to a shifted mindset, which is the focus of your work. And that's a true testament to how much things can change. So I know we're out of time for today anyway. Before we kind of close things up here, You have a really special event for women coming up in September in Texas. Would you just share with those female executives out there, the ones I've talked to that think they can't have it all, both a career and a family, and might be on that journey now? How does this event support someone like them?
So this event is called the Fearlessly Fertile Limitless Retreat. And this is the brainchild of me sitting and asking myself, how can women truly begin to have it all at a time when it seems like they can't? Whether it's they're on the journey to conceive and they might be struggling, or they have had their babies and now they're asking a different kind of question. And, do I have to trade my family for my career, or, what is next for me? Because a lot of women get this idea that when my baby comes, everything will be fine, right? This hole in my heart that has been there, it's suddenly going to be closed and I'm never going to have to think about my life again. But the reality is as a mom to be, there's going to be so much more for you waiting on the other side of who you become as a mother. And women are very often ignored at that point. Like, oh, she's got a career, she's got a baby, she's got everything. But we ignore the question that often comes up is what now, right? Much like when, you get the positive pregnancy test, you're super happy, everything's great, you're having a wonderful pregnancy, and you're like, but my life is still my life. My life is still lifing. And so getting to a place where you can be in collaboration with other high-performing women who are asking questions like this is immersion in an extraordinary environment. I mean, you've been to my events, you know how it can be. But what this is really looking at is, how do we position women to be truly limitless on their path to motherhood and beyond? And so over the course of 3 days, we're going to be doing nervous system mastery. We're going to be looking at identity shifts, because these things happen all the time, from wife to mother to executive. We're having to shift a lot of the beliefs that we have about ourselves, what's possible in that new context. And we're going to be creating tangible plans, like real steps. Okay, so I say that I want this. Well, how do I get there? And really showing women what collaboration in a curated community looks like. Because if your clients are anything like my ladies, all right, we're typically lone wolves, all right? Like we're used to operating in a silo because we're the best at what we do. But when you're surrounded by other high-achieving, high-performing women in an environment that really does foster collaboration over competition, it's like a tinderbox of amazingness where real friendships can be formed, real connections, and women can see that, you know what, I'm actually in an environment that's encouraging me to have it all and have it my way and do it in a unique way that lines up with my values. So that's what Limitless is all about. It's happening September 13th, 14th, and 15th in the Woodlands, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. So yeah, that's what it's all about.
And for those interested, what's the best way to connect with you?
What they can do is they can check out my website, www.frommaybe2baby.com, or I'm very active on Instagram, so they can find me at Rosanne Austin Fertility, and also on the Fearlessly Fertile podcast.
I love it. Well, Rosanne, I want to thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom with our listeners, with our audience, giving them some things that they can do practically to evaluate their mindset and get the results that they want. So thank you so much, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, hey, thank you for having me. I love it when things come full circle, and it's a delight to be with you and to share with this audience what I've learned over the years. So thank you, Elise.
Like what you heard on today's episode and want to go deeper? Subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also pick up my book, Lead Anyone, on Amazon. Then, go to my website to check out ways that we can support your leadership goals. From executive retreats to customized training and coaching, my team of experts will help you level up your leadership and accelerate your results. Go to www.eliseboggs.com for more info.